You're on mute, beautiful.
Thank you so much. Welcome. Welcome to Global Networking and Prison Reforms and Reintegration. Two wins together today with myself, Global Chair of Global Networking, and Anita Caprice, Global Chair of the newly win Prison Reforms and Reintegration. Today we are going to address a very difficult topic also for us because it's new, because it's difficult, and because many people are quite skeptical about their own meaning of what is prison reforms. Anita, you are very welcome to this. That is your space that we share, and we are very happy to have you. Anita,
Thank
why prison reforms is important?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, thank you, Mark. Thank you so much for joining hands with Prison Reforms and Reintegration. And thank you, Dr. Harbeen. It is so very necessary. Well, one, prison reform is necessary both globally and locally. So I'm going to say nationally, internationally, domestically, and globally. The reason why prison reform, meaning to make anew, because I had to really look that word up. When I first became global chair, we think of words and in our mind, we have our own idea of what the definition is. So at first I'm thinking reform, transform, reintegration, and all of them were mixed together for me. So I decided to know, in order to really be effective in this endeavor, in this embarking on this journey, I needed to really understand what is reform. So the word reform, actually, it means to make new, to make something new, not change it, but to make it new so that it can be changed. The reason why reform is important and necessary locally and globally is because speaking within the female criminal justice system, within that penal system, there are programs and treatment modalities that are ineffective, and they are inferior according to our research with the country chairs and the global and USA advisory that we and the state chair that we've gotten together. We're doing research. There is ineffective substance abuse treatment for our sisters. There's ineffective mental abuse treatment for our sisters. There's it all of this is ineffective because when a sister is first arrested, then she's sentenced, and then she's convicted. I'm sorry, convicted, then sentenced, and served time in the commitment setting, meaning the prison setting. Before that happens, we found out that the the primary crimes are petty theft and substance abuse, and that there is an overwhelming number of substance of abuse, actual partaking in the substance abuse. So we're asking ourselves, why does the substance abuse? Why do we try to alter our state of consciousness? It's because wherever we are, we're either we're fearful, or there's something that is dangerous, or something that is not of quality of life. So to reform in the penal system, we've got to understand the sister that's been in a survivor mode before she even went into the prison. And now she's in the prison, and my heart just goes out, because in my mind, I see this picture of a sister who's been in the survivor mode, either through domestic violence, sexual abuse, or whatever, dowry issues. She's in this situation. Now she's in the penal system, in prison, in the institution. She's not being cared for. These issues of sexual abuse, substance abuse, and things like that are not being addressed properly. And then we have a sister who goes into the community, and then she's still back into that survivor mode. So it is necessary. We need to reform. We need to make new the substance abuse treatment, the mental health treatment. We need to make that new, and perhaps bringing in a holistic approach to helping our sisters um, helping our sisters within the penal system grow and flourish and become and elevate that self-esteem and help them heal themselves. So absolutely, prison reform, the different types of treatment program and modalities is absolutely imperatively necessary that it's reformed.
Thank you, Anita. It doesn't matter the position that the people hold. What is clear, the conclusion is that this current system is ineffective and expensive. And not only for one region or another, it's really worldwide. It's really a global. It seems to be global, and the reforms could lead to more effective and less costly systems. So we have also a matter of budget here. What is of public interest because of that, also because of budget. There are often overcrowded and understaffed. Just seeing a Google search, very simple, they say they're overcrowded and understaffed. Most of the countries hold this problem and lead to poor condition for inmates. And,
Go ahead, I apologize. Absolutely.
Yeah, in American prisons, they say, I have it here, the prison house more than 1.5 million individuals and have increased since 1978 in more than 390%.
Wow.
This is really very important, and I'm so glad that today we have from U.S. people here that could also have a say. Michelle, Ivy from Ireland, Laurie, Bridget, welcome.
Thank you.
Please, what do you think about this? Is this a problem or not? We are exaggerating, and we need to avoid ignore the problem. What do you think? Is there a problem?
Yes, I think definitely, Mar, it is. I personally think it is a problem. Not only the overcrowding that you mentioned just now in terms of prisons here in the USA, our prisoners, while they are prisoners, they lost certain rights, and the way that the rights that they were taken away from them, it's almost imply that or diminish their value, like of a human being, the way that you see it. Some of the rights that's taken away from them while being in prison is the rights of privacy, and also prisoners don't have the rights to earn wage. So in other words, the minimum wage does not apply to you if you are a prisoner and you're working, right? And imagine even just that alone, what's the implications of a person? It almost says that you're not really worthy. Is one implications that many prisoners can see it. And as Dr. Anita says earlier just now, they already has all these things going on where they're coming from. Now they're treated in such a way. And how is that to that person's emotional and spiritual well-being? I mean, what kind of demeaning is that? And I see it, I would agree that how important it is to be able to do a reform where we approach them, we treat them holistically, where we teach them education on skills and also skills such that in their mind and thinking, such that they're not thinking the same way. Otherwise, if they're thinking the same way, they finally released from prisons, they'll be doing the exact same thing that got them into the prisons before. But also being a grief coach to heal them their emotional states, because being in prisons is a traumatic thing, and anything that can create trauma can cause you to grieve. Now being in prisons, being devalued, anyone being devalued, it's a form of, I mean, it's similar to being emotionally abused, really. It's kind of like not that much difference than you are sitting in a home with somebody that says, you are stupid, you are infallible. This is just written there as you lose your life. And that can be traumatizing. So I would see it as it's absolutely necessary to have a holistic approach of educating them, providing them the skill, providing them the mind skill to think the way that's more empowering, helping them heal emotionally and being such that they'll be able to move forward from where they have been and create a better result after the prison.
Thank you, Bridget, for this compassionate approach that I love. I go align with our community, isn't it, Anita?
Yes, yes. Yes, I so agree. With the prison system, to punish in the penal system is to take away freedom. It is not to violate a person's human right. And when there is ineffective treatment, when there is being treated less than a human, you're taking away a person's human right. That has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with rehabilitation. It has nothing to do with the punishment. That goes well beyond, and that's one of the other things that needs to also be reformed. And I understand, like you were saying, Mara, like with the budget, staffing, yes, it takes money, and there's staffing needs and everything. So all of those components, all of those variables are needed to take into consideration. That's why this work is not, it doesn't have to be burdensome, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming, but it has to be strategic.
Yeah.
That's one thing. I'm just going to jump in again really quick. One thing with the prisons in concept in general, you mentioned the word rehabilitation, Dr. Anita, and punishment. I just want to invite, yes, somebody has done something that we perceive as a mistake, right? But talking about compassion, Mark, what if our approach to our prisoner is to rehabilitate them, is to provide them the tools and skills such that they're not going to repeat that mistake instead of punishing them. I mean, it's just kind of like the word of punishing somebody. It's like, even if you think about the Pavlov dogs model, when you punish somebody, you create resentment at the cost of grief. But when they're approaching as you, and this is I think in global prison globally, when they're approaching in the form of let me help you such that you don't create this again versus let me punish you, it lands differently. And how people perceive and they're being treated can create a completely different outcome. It's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, the punishment is needed. Now, for me, I believe, let the punishment fit the crime. That's why I was saying, to be sentenced in the commitment setting, it is to restrict someone's freedom. But while restricting that freedom, offer educational opportunities, offer skill trade opportunities, offer effective mental health opportunities, offer effective substance abuse. You know what I mean? So while that person may be restricted in freedom, they are still should be able to avail themselves. So once they come into the community, they've learned more and garnered more while in the penal system, so that they can effectively be involved in the community. Yeah.
Thank you, Anita. Michelle Brown, you are in USA. What is your perception? It's a matter of logistical, it's expensive, it's ineffective, or we have to go to an approach of this compassion, which is not punish the people more than there is to be in a prison. What is the real focus to really renew the system and make it effective?
Well, I think our first approach should be we have to deal with the root cause. Here and globally, I think we look at the symptoms, like drug abuse or domestic violence or whatever brought them there. We look at the system, but the symptoms, excuse me, but we never focus on the root cause. And what happens, we get ushered in to these facilities or these, correction facilities or punishment. And I agree with Dr. Anita, the punishment should fit the crime. However, while I'm there, if you don't deal with the root cause that brought me here, then it's a revolving door, right? And then not only am I coming into a system where it's just going to compound on my trauma and compound on, whatever root cause that brought me here, then when I'm done my sentencing and come out, I'm not going to be able to function in society. Actually, study have shown that I am now worse than when I first started, before I came into the system. So I think the first step we really need to do is look at the root causes. Why? I think Dr. Nita said it earlier. Like, why is the person on drugs? Right? What are they trying to numb? Right? Why is this person violent? What are they acting out from? So I think if we can get to the root causes, is it a mental health issue? Right? Or is it, something that they're trying to soothe themselves from? I think if we address these issues first, then maybe we can get to a rehabilitation. Because I can't fix something that I'm not aware of, right? If I don't know that this is my root cause, if I don't know this is what's causing me to do X, Y, and Z, then I'm going to continue to just repeat that same pattern. So yeah, so my thing, I think we really have to get to what is the root cause that's bringing these women, into the system.
Thank you, Michelle. Yes, root causes to avoid, to stop, to prevent to criminal behavior that in general prisons boost more criminal. More criminal rather than reduce it and reintegrate it. Lori, you are in USA, so before we go to Ivy, that is in Ireland, and we came back to Europe. Before that, Lori, what is your perception in US? There's also a debate about private prisons, public prisons, not on the rest of the world. I think America, particularly USA, hold this debate about public or private prison. What do you think about it?
Oh, goodness. I think first I just really like what everyone has said, and I agree that with there to be real rehabilitation rather than focusing on punishment, we need to look at what supports are there. And if we look at the prison populations, it's well documented, there's high incidences of ACEs. There's the whole ACEs studies, adverse childhood experiences, which that leads to some of these behaviors of difficulty coping. But and we need to be supporting people upstream ahead of time in early childhood education and childcare and all of these things that are part of social determinants of health, so that people can be rehabilitated, so that they have a pathway once they get out to get the support to not need to go back and to address the problem that contributed to that in the first place. And I think in bringing up the private versus public prisons, that is part of the huge reform that needs to happen. I mean, what an insane idea to make profit off of imprisoning people. That is just sick to its core. And that's, our whole system, as we know in the United States with prisons, is a form of institutionalized racism. There's no question about how people are put in prison. It's also people that are lower income that can't afford the bail. I mean, it's differentially enforced from a law enforcement level all the way up. And it does need to be entirely reformed to its core. In our country, we have a higher per capita of people that are incarcerated, I think, than anyone else in the world. So clearly we're not good at what we're doing, and clearly it doesn't solve the problem. So when we can really look at what is it that we can do from a compassionate perspective, and not by the time somebody gets to prison, but early on, so that we can support people so they don't have that, or at the time of sentencing, where instead of sentencing someone to prison where they lose their freedom, sentence them to treatment that's available and affordable. Change the system so that when there's a parole officer, a probation officer, that they're providing those supports so that there is that reintegration. And what that means is people feeling reconnected to their communities in a meaningful way, so that they want to stay on track because they're getting the benefit, the community's getting the benefit. And we can create those things. We must create those things. Otherwise, it's my end of things is a circular economy. And basically, when we throw someone in prison and we don't do anything for them, then that's not a economic closed loop. I mean, that's like end of the road there, and nobody benefits. And really, as an economy, as a society, it's people that run things. And when we invest in our people, it makes all the difference. But in its current state, it's rotten to the core. And it does need to be, I agree with you, Anita, that it needs not just to be reformed and changed, it needs to be fundamentally changed.
Thank you so much, Lori, for bringing this issue. I before I go to Ivy, have you seen that Lori bring what is equality in a society, the less costly effective method to reduce prison population? So you know how we connect to make a sustainable society, and we could reduce prison population by creating equality, isn't it, Anita?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Reintegration is going to happen because once a person is sentenced, if they're not lifers, natural lifers, they're going to be paroled. So that means they're going to be joined back with society. That's going to happen. The issue is the quality of their life, the manner in which they're able to adjust and not just only survive. We all survive. That how can that person thrive? And then once the components are set in the penal system, and when that person is paroled or released from the institution, then if proper treatment and proper services and educational opportunities are made available to them, we have reduced recidivism, because that's what happens. I get out of prison and I'm going to be coming right back, and then I'm coming right back again, and then eventually once I reach that state of recidivism at that third strike, then I'm in there for good. So yes, Lori and Dr. Burgett and Michelle and Mar, that's the whole thing starts with, like Michelle says, the root cause, and then also the root treatment modality to make sure that person, that sister, and I'll say that person is able to thrive in our community, not just survive. We have homeless, unhoused people surviving.
Thank you. Creating resilience, Anita. Creating resilience, Ivy, from Ireland, National Chair in Prisoner Reform. How is your vision from Europe? We have heard the American vision. What is your vision from here, from Europe?
Everybody spoke a little bit about every aspect, in terms of what we're speaking about. In Ireland here, they have a different kind of approach as well. The way that they say the holistic, they cater for the mindsets of the people that are incarcerated, and guiding them towards the process in terms of bringing them out, in terms of integrating back into the communities. But there's one aspect that I'm going to try and speak about, is when they're coming to reintegration in terms of the community, where does the families lie? Because they have to come into a household. So that is the aspect that as well we have to think about, the mindset of coming back into a household where you left, and who is there to cater for those people from those households, in terms of reintegrating the both aspect, the person that came out of the prison and then themselves that undergo the whole transition on journey. And that is the aspect as well that we have to bridge as well. Because one thing is them integrating back to the community, leveraging their strengths and their weaknesses that they acquired from the prison system, and in terms of re-engineering them in their mind, their mindset, their root cause and what led them there, but as well understanding as well how they can move forward. Because one thing is you coming out of the prison system and you're thrown out in one day, you're in one day and you're out. So is there any way to as well to ease in that process in both aspects, both sides? And this is the things that here in Ireland they're working towards. And as well, there's a situation as well in terms of we're dealing with homelessness, and as well not to utilize the space in terms of the incarceration space for people to do petty crimes, to be able to get into the prison system, for them to have a place to live. So which is happening as well a lot here in Ireland. Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you, Ivy. Here in Spain, and it's not to presume, but they have we start the year with the lowest number of prison population in 12 years. And they say that it's related not to a reduction in criminality, but to prison reforms. Do you know the importance of the prisons policies that could help to boost a better well-being and at the same time to reintegrate it better? You know, there are two different processes. Do you think that one influenced the other, or it just separated?
In what aspect?
In any that we wanted to address it is prison reforms. It just, if we reform the system, it will help on the reintegration, or that is a part that is differently, and the integration in society will be troublesome anyway if there is reforms in prison, or is connected. What do you think?
I think it's connected.
It's connected. Yeah.
Because we already are, as the people already that are incarcerated in their own home without even knowing that they are incarcerated, and without even, being an offender. So imagine those people plus the offenders. We're all in the same boat at this stage. So it's just knowing how to coexist.
Anita.
Well, first I just have to say that was an excellent point, IVI, as far as integrating that person into the household. I never even thought of that component. When I think of integration, I'm thinking into the whole of society, into a community. But integration is also within that household. So that's thank you for that. I just want to thank you for bringing that to our attention. Absolutely, reintegration and reform. It's one unit. It's one entity that may have two names, but without one, you can reintegrate back into society, but you cannot reintegrate back into society without proper reformation. There has to be something that's going to help that person live a life outside of the penal system where they're able to feel good. Like Dr. Burgess, you got to feel good. The root cause, Michelle, you got to know, okay, what was the, I'm going to break it. What was the, for lack of a better word, the sole reason that this was in this mindset with Mindset Matters? This mindset occurred in the first place. So, and because we are prison reform, we're not pre-commitment probation. This wing, and we have to be mindful of that, this wing is prison reform and reintegration. So it starts, it does, we have to take a look at the pre-commitment, the pre-condition, but we also have to stay mindful that this is our goal is to what? Is to help reform conditions that are in the criminal justice system, specifically the penal system, and then how that person is able to integrate back into society based on what they were able to be blessed with while being incarcerated. If that makes sense.
Yeah, of course it is. Usually when we talk about prison reforms, we associate it with the role of the state. It's a public issue. But how we could do it, because this is what we do from G100 and Global Chair Anita Caprice from Prison Reforms and Reintegration, that is our initiatives from the civil society. So how do you think networking may contribute to that compassion, to address the root causes, to that prison conditions? How do you think we could do it? And any of you, Laurie, Ivy, Bridget, Michelle?
I
Well,
think that, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead, go ahead, Lori. I'll wait.
Lori.
Um, yeah, I think there are some really wonderful examples of, where job skills are taught in prison that can be translated to outside of prison, where there's that smoother transition. And if you combine, work with housing for people so that it's a natural progression and there's room to continue and move up. I think in San Francisco, they have, I think it's a restaurant or a bread company and it's become very popular. And it really is a pathway. A lot of my work has been in emergency rooms, and I've worked with a lot of people that have been released and they wanted to, build a life, but, they go to rent and nobody will rent to them. They go to look for a job and nobody will hire them. So being able to make sure that they get job skills, that there's a pathway for them to get the jobs and get the support once they're in the jobs, and then also to look at what models there are that are innovative that helps people stay on track and gives them the support, so that they do feel reintegrated. And I think the other part of that is giving people back their voting rights. Once they've served their debt to society, they should be able to vote again. I mean, that's a part of participating in our society. So I think there's a lot that we can do to make it easier for people to reintegrate, because we all win when that happens.
Absolutely, Lori. Yes, Michelle.
Yes, pretty much the same what Lori was saying. Well, one thing about the system, at least here in America, it's designed and almost insulates you into recidivismness, because when you come out, like she said, you can't vote, you have a hard time finding housing, and then a lot of times people fall right back into, you know, prison. So I think what we can do as G100 prison reform and reintegration is that different programs, like we meet them, like Dr. Anita said, we start right there in the prison system. What programs or what services can we do that will help these individuals, women, to um, re go back into society and be and integrate back into the community well. Like, what can we do? Because we have to start somewhere. And I think if we start right there, like maybe we can't get them pre their prison sentence, but once they come in, what can we do? Because prison has its own culture. I've talked to people that've been in prison before. There's a different altogether culture than when they come back out into society. And sometimes that transition is not easy, especially when you have laws and stuff in place that almost tie your hands, almost handcuff your hands again. So I guess where we can start is right there in this. What can we do? What programs can we do will make that transition easy for them?
Thank you, Michelle. Ivy, also from Prison Reforms Win, what do you think? Why networking may contribute to that? The civil society in general.
I think some of the speakers already said some few bits and pieces that helps. Because somebody that comes out, you need a job, you need a place to stay, you need somebody that can be able to trust you to go into the establishment. Even if we can be able to connect to all these workplaces, that they can be able to take some few people that comes out from incarceration, if they can make the cut into certain places with their skills, that's already a start. If we can get some houses that also organizations where they can let some people to be able to come out in those circumstances, put in their references for housing, and they know, okay, these people can vouch for me to get a house. That's already a plus. And then having as well some places where they can get in terms of knowing how to navigate their emotional intelligence and their physical body language in terms of how to dress up for success, and try to project their mind, re-engineer their mind frame in terms of how to even conduct a communication. Because one thing is having communication inside the carceration system, another thing is having a different kind of approach and language outdoors, so they can relate to the community. So this is can be small modules that we can put together in terms of approach.
Absolutely.
Interesting, Ivy. And you see the comment from Tia Littlejohn. Some are working in prison, slave labor for corporate gain without addressing real trauma or mental health disorders. What do you think about it?
That's true.
That's
That's true.
That's the reform. That's the reform. And I want to thank Reverend Tia for your presence and engagement, because I've seen several of her comments. So thank you, Reverend Tia. Absolutely. I mean, that's the whole thing about reform. Reforming slave labor, eliminate, reforming the idea for corporate gain, reforming not addressing trauma or mental health. So that's the big elephant in the room.
Tia also make this comment that is very interesting. That is 73% of women incarcerated in state prisons experience mental health issues compared to 55% of men.
Yes.
That's another very interesting aspect to relate women networking and prison reforms, isn't it, Anita?
Absolutely. When I was in the prison system, not serving, but working in the prison system, I spent 4 years in the maximum male community. And I would talk with those brothers and ask them, because they were just excellent artists, carpenters, portraitures. And I would ask them, how long were you doing what you do as far as your artistic talent and your genius? And I would ask them, it could be on grounds, it could be anywhere. And because it wouldn't be in a certain room, there was a certain thing that they would share with me, that they would say, I didn't know what I had until I was forced to be still and go inside myself. And I say that to say 73% of women incarcerated state prisons experience mental health issues. Here you have, I know in the United States, I mean, there's about 1,600 prisons, both state, I'm not counting local jails or anything like that, but I guess less than half, maybe a quarter are for females, but yet the number of females sentenced to incarceration has escalated. So here we have in the male penal system, at least, when he's sharing with me, say, hey, I didn't know what I had till I had a moment of quiet to go inside myself. You have these female institutions where you may have the maximum capacity is 200, but yet you're housing 250. How is that sister? How can she take a moment of quiet to be even to get within herself? Because that's one of the holistic approaches to reforming the mental health models and substance, addressing the root cause. You got to be quiet. So I'm only saying that to say that's part of the major reform too, is that it's amazing how I can even imagine being housed somewhere and there's nowhere that I can go where I can get to myself, at least just to breathe. That alone causes serious physiological changes in our body, let alone mental, emotional, because it all works together. So just going into that biological and spiritual and mental and emotional component, it's tremendous to me. It really is. Hey, Anne.
You get emotional, Anita, because that is G100. That is the spirit, goodwill, expertise, and solidarity. And for that, you need emotions, and we put the emotion in our networking. That's why we have faith and work that with our networking we can change the current chaotic state, especially for what is prisons and social reintegration. Please, we are coming to an end. Unfortunately, it could be, I hope it will be the first of many other editions of discussing prison reform and reintegration that we need to do. For the meantime, please, 1 or 2 minutes, each of you, for a wrap up. Bridget?
Thank you, Mar. Yes, I love what everybody's saying. And to briefly address your last questions, that I think it's first of all to clarify. I wasn't saying that you cannot punish somebody. When I said earlier, what is your focus? Is your focus in punishing or in your focus in helping? It's kind of like with children, right? You can a children make a mistake. Do you focus on punishing them, or do you focus in teaching them? And part of the teaching a lot of time include some form of punishment. Now, but in terms of networking, society, everyone is part of the society. And so I would say that it is absolutely important and critical for everyone in the society to participate and as you and to educate each other, to be able to say, okay, you know what, how are we going to receive somebody who has completed their surfing in the prison, and to share this spirit, to educate each other, to share this spirits of helping them become part of us again, instead of a lot of time here in the US in particular fearing them. It's like, oh my God, you're in prison, so I'm afraid of you. But it's to educate each other and to continue when somebody's returned from their surfing, to embrace them and allow them opportunities.
Thank you, Bridget. Very interesting. Ivy?
Yeah, it's the continuation or it's the extension of what Bridget said. It's all about reintegrating them back. Dealing with the root cause. The root cause is the main issue. So, but if you can be able to re-engineer their mindsets from what happened, for them to have a better hope, not thinking that they're in the state of hopelessness. So they can be able to leverage their strengths and weaknesses, as Dr. Anita was saying, that they have a lot of talents, and we as society acknowledging those talents that they have, and seeing beauty in that talent without making what happened to them to be who they are, in terms of stigmatizing them in the community. That is the way, to me, going forward in terms of holistically.
Thank you, Ivy. Holistically, it repeated, no? And along all the session, we say holistic. It's our keyword. Lori, please.
Well, same thing. I really agree about the holistic piece. When we're thinking psychodynamically within the individual of the mindset, right, of how to succeed, how to shift your feelings, how to tolerate emotions, how to make different choices, all those things, how to cope with trauma. Those are huge things, because there's going to be things that people face, we all do, but especially so if you've had a trauma of an adverse childhood experience, which most prisoners have, or whether prison itself is dehumanizing. So being able to treat those traumas to help people reintegrate on an internal level, psychodynamically, to be able to manage their own emotions and to teach those skills, but also on an external level, because these are some very real barriers that people experience that have contributed to their being in prison in the first place. So we want to work from the person inside, as well as remove some of those barriers, so that there is housing, so that there is a pathway to, education, or a pathway to work, or whatever it is, so that it's going to last, so that people don't feel pushed again to do the same behaviors.
Thank you, Lori. You go to another one of the key points, that is mental health. And as always, Anita invite us, tap into your inners, into yourself. How we could work, Anita, with that, with their inner of the prisoners, their inner peace.
Yes, providing programs. I believe like IBI has a program. Dr. Berger with grief counseling, Michelle mindset, Lori, and listening. listening to our sisters, listening to what they need and then helping them to go within themselves. Because how do we, the first thing in coaching, it says, you got to recognize that a change is needed. How do you recognize that change? No one can give that to you. What we want to do as G100 prison reforms and reintegration as compassionate sisters is to say, okay, the first thing we need to recognize is, what do you need? What do you need? Not tell you what you need, but you share with us what you need. And in order to do that, they've got to be able to tap into themselves. How do you tap into yourself? By someone asking you questions and you coming up with your own answer. And then something is built upon, the foundation is built upon that sister who's providing the answer to what she needs. And then that grows, and then that the seed is planted, and then that tree begins to sprout.
Planting the seed on that tree, Michelle. That beautiful, beautiful, beautiful message from Anita. Michelle, your wrap up of what means prison reforms.
Yes, and I know it may seem like prison reform is this large, daunting task because there's so many things and moving parts and moving pieces that need to be addressed. But if we can just, there's a quote, excuse me, by Margaret Mead, and she said, "Never doubt that a group of individuals can change the world, because indeed that's the only thing that ever has." So as long as we stay committed and know that, even though it may seem like this is a big daunting task, but we can be that provider for these women globally, internationally, nationally, that needs us. We need, that need our voice to help them, move along in their lives. So yes.
If I may say on that note, on Michelle's note with Margaret Mead, we invite you, my sister who are watching, we invite you, if you'd like to serve as country chair within G100 Prison Reforms and Reintegration, we will welcome, love, and embrace you within our family, because this is a family. So I just wanted to share that.
This is a matter of goodwill, a matter of logistical conditions, a matter of economic enable environments to help them to be reintegrated. And also, it's a matter of ethics, of compassion, of not adding more punishment that is already there. So all of that is about solidarity. It's about building a society with all the negative and the positive, building all together. And here we are, it's Anita Caprice and our humble contribution for global networking, that is Lori and Bridget. So thank you for being here. Thank you for letting us contribute with a small contribution, but really meaning, and with all our emotions there to you, to give it to you as a gift for us. Thank you so much for allowing us, Anita, Global Chair, Prison Reforms. As Anita say, please, if you wanted to join her win and you wanted to become a national chair advisor, you don't have to be an expert. You just need solidarity, goodwill, and common sense to support her. Anita, I give you the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Mar. Absolutely. Yeah. And the networking is so absolutely critical, and is a major contribution, because as we say in ESWP, we're joining hands. We're doing more than collaboration. The touch is the original form of healing. And when we join hands with each other, we are activating that form of healing. We are sharing ideas, we're sharing resources, we're sharing our love, we're sharing our sisterhood, our sister love, and as a family. So I'm just I love this. Thank you so very much, Mar, for inviting G100 within prison reforms and reintegration with global networking, because we're joining hands. Well, we've been joining hands for a couple of years now, Mark. Yes. So I just, I'm looking forward to working with Dr. Birch. I'm looking forward to working with Lori and my sisters, my country chairs, Ivy I and Michelle and our others. So I'm getting a little girl with it. I'm geeked. I am so looking forward to growing and making a difference, because I say oneness and wisdom began with two people. It was me and Anu Nandapali, who was the Indian chair. Today, I know there are at least 150. Now we're 150 strong, sisters and brothers strong. And I would say, just like a higher realm is with that G100 thing, so is that higher realm with G100 prison reforms and reintegration. No doubt. No
Thank you.
doubt.